Los Angeles. On Election Day in the spring of 1968, 14-year-old Karen Bass was going door to door, trying to persuade her Los Angeles neighbors to vote for Robert F. Kennedy in the Democratic presidential primary. The charismatic candidate had energized young voters with a campaign focused on economic justice and racial equality. The teenage Bass saw him not just as a progressive politician, but as the activist she wanted to be. That night, as Kennedy left the Los Angeles rally celebrating his primary win, he was shot to death. The coalition that Kennedy had assembled crumbled over the next few months, and Richard M. Nixon, RFK's polar opposite, was elected president. That outcome left its mark on Bass, who had already grieved the murders of the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. "I realized it's not about a single individual leading the charge," she said in a recent interview. "The assassinations I saw growing up taught me that every time you had a major leader lost, things fell apart." Today Karen Bass, 66, is a veteran politician in California and head of the Congressional Black Caucus. She's a bona fide progressive, a congresswoman in her fifth term who has trounced her opponents in every race she's run, a former physician's assistant with a health sciences degree, a stalwart advocate for women and children, a longtime promoter of police reform and the first African American woman in the nation's history to lead a state legislative house. Yet among voters outside of California, her name often draws a blank. Even as she is under serious consideration to be Joe Biden's vice presidential running mate on the Democratic ticket, she has one of the lowest public profiles among the top contenders. She's famously reluctant to be photographed, and only recently have the national media begun to pay her serious attention. What might seem like uncommon reticence for a politician on the national stage, however, looks different to observers and journalists who have watched Bass work for decades in Los Angeles, as a community-driven operator whose low profile is a key part of her effectiveness, not an obstacle to success. It's not a calculated political style. It's just her authentic self. And people have always seemed to respond to that, says her longtime mentor and Black LA political dean Mark Ridley-Thomas. In 1990, as a community activist in South Los Angeles, Bass founded a local nonprofit called the Community Coalition, with the mantra of, "No celebrity-style leadership." The phrase was written in the founding documents and was part of every orientation. "If you're here to make a name for yourself," Bass would say to new employees, "you should find another place to work." When she was elected to the California State Assembly in 2004, she carried that attitude into her political career.